Alright, and welcome to my Momodora Reverie under the Moonlight, insane difficulty, leaf only, no items, no vitality fragments, guided walkthrough. So in essence, going through the game on the highest difficulty with only the bare basics. Moreover, with these restrictions, you really get to see every detail of all the obstacles that the game puts in your way, as you won't have the option to work around the challenges. Unfortunately, this game is not exactly that well known, and that's a shame, because this is a very well designed and worthwhile indie game. So if you somehow just stumbled upon this video, or you're one of my subscribers who has never played this game, I definitely advise you to check it out. And being an indie game, it is really inexpensive. And then of course, come back here after beating hard mode, because that's the requirement for unlocking insane difficulty. What this mode basically comes down to is that it's a one-hit death difficulty. So any mistake you make will set you back to your last save point. Now, technically this isn't inherent to the setting itself. It's simply that you start with such a small life bar that any hit you take is guaranteed to kill you. However, if you pick up enough vitality fragments, you will get to a point where you can survive at least some attacks. However, that kind of defeats the purpose of this difficulty in my opinion. Therefore, the first restriction in this playthrough is that I will not pick up any vitality fragments. In other words, no mistakes allowed. This means that I die like a motherfucker, so you can expect crossfades after most save points, where I cut to the successful attempt. Now, as harsh as not being able to take a hit may be, there are actually several items in this game that can greatly decrease the challenges you face. Items that massively increase your damage, several powerful ways to upgrade your ranged attacks, but none of that in this playthrough. We're cutting it down to the bare essentials. No items of any kind, with the exception of the cat sphere and the sealed wind, since those are required to beat the game. Also, the crest fragments that we need to pick up will also give us a bonus, but 2 of those upgrade your arrows. And other than the lack of passive and active items, I will also not use any ranged attacks. So the bow is reserved for activating blue orbs on some occasions, but never to defeat any enemies. The final 2 upgrades are for warping between save points and the mid-air dodge ability. So together with the green leaf upgrade near the end to get the true ending, those are the only actual upgrades we'll be getting in this playthrough. So let's first talk about what we even have to work with. When it comes to evasion, we can jump, double jump and roll, and halfway through the game we also have the ability to dodge in mid-air. Now, not to be annoying and compare everything to Dark Souls, in fact this is dissimilar, namely that the roll animation gives you an incredible amount of iframes, not merely at the start of the animation, but during virtually every frame of the roll you are invincible. So that makes it an incredibly valuable move to dodge both through enemies and enemy projectiles. After all, it's only 2D, so often there is literally no space available other than going right through an attack or through the hitbox of the enemy itself. The mid-air dodge is different though, but I'll talk about that when we eventually gain that ability. When it comes to the offense, we only have, a leaf for some reason. This is why a leaf only run is sometimes referred to as a Canadian run. Other than a single standing or jumping attack, you have your basic 3-hit combo. The 3rd hit of which does more damage. However, even though you don't have that much recovery time from that animation, especially during many boss fights, you will have to be very careful when you choose to finish a combo or cancel after the 1st or 2nd hit, because you cannot immediately roll when you are in that animation. So yes, you want to do as much combos as possible, but getting greedy can get you killed, because you may need to react faster than is allowed based on animation priority, meaning that the animation of the 3rd hit needs to end before you can start the roll animation. So sometimes I will advise you to tap the attack button to string single attacks together. Even though it does less damage, it will sometimes be safer. Now, what I actually don't utilize as much is the fact that a jump attack does more damage than a single standing attack. So keep in mind that some enemies can die in a single hit when you do a jump attack, but will not die from a single standing attack. Okay, it's time for the first boss fight already. Fortunately, its attacks are very well telegraphed with this white circle animation that serves as an indicator that an attack is coming in pretty much every single boss fight. However, it does not telegraph which attack is coming. But the most dangerous attack is one which is not telegraphed, and that is her quick melee attack that looks very similar to your own leaf attack. And that's the reason I am playing very carefully in this fight. It's not advisable to be too aggressive, because then a sudden quick untelegraphed melee attack will catch you off guard and we cannot dodge in mid-air yet, as you need to hit her in the head. Fortunately, the hitbox of that attack is very small, so even though she did catch me off guard, she didn't actually hit me. Now, her tail is actually her weak point, but you can only hit her tail when she attacks with it, and given how quickly she retracts it again, I don't really bother with it. When she attacks with her tail, moving back and doing a double jump gives you enough airtime to dodge her tail before she retracts it again. As the fight progresses, the area on the left becomes a dead zone because of poison clouds, and poison is simply an instant death on Insane. She can also spray poison clouds as an attack of her own, and keep in mind that it's a lingering hitbox, so it only becomes inactive during the last frames that it is visible. You can pass through the edge of a poison cloud though if you are quick enough. She's not that hard, but you do have to approach the fight with a bit of patience. Remember that only a single mistake will set you back. Every boss will drop a special item if you defeat it without taking a hit, which you will do by necessity on Insane difficulty, but we're not using any items in this playthrough. However, on a regular Insane playthrough without restrictions, these items are incredibly helpful. The pearl dropped by the first boss, for example, makes your arrows poisonous, so that way you can do a lot of passive damage during the other boss fights. A somewhat cruel aspect of this game is that it doesn't autosave. So even though there is a save point most of the times directly after a boss fight, but as is the case here, there is in fact a single enemy before the next save point. Although you could of course have gone back to the same save point as before, and then progress, but the point is that even though it is unlikely, it is possible that you die before you save the game after a boss fight. So that would mean doing the boss fight all over again. And this applies to shortcuts as well. You need to always reach the next save point in order to make any progress whatsoever. And speaking of shortcuts, over here to the right we have one of those shortcuts. And in this area we encounter several of these, well, let's call them witches, throwing projectiles at you. You will encounter several types of ranged enemies, and the ones that aim, like these, can be manipulated. They make a sound right before they are about to fire, and when their throwing animation starts, they will aim at where you are currently standing. So that way you can predict or even manipulate the trajectory of their projectiles. Or, of course, when possible, stay out of their range and deal with other enemies first. For example, when you go down the ladder here, stay left and let the dogs come to you. This way you won't trigger an attack from the witch on the right. The next part is tricky as there are two witches firing at you and you have to evade two dogs as well. So quickly move forward, then back to evade the second witch and make good use of the double jump to get past the dogs. Since we don't have to care about items and money, we can just immediately go down and open up the shortcut. Be careful of the witch above the shortcut firing at you, because it takes some time for the door to open. To emphasize again, you need to actually get back to the save point for the shortcut to stay open. And then it's time for the second boss fight already. As you know, this fight is a bait and switch as this little eye creature isn't the real boss. So for this phase there isn't that much to it, just attack until you see the white circle and then move to the right side of the screen and wait for his shield to dissipate. His second move is to make blocks spring out of the ground, but you counter it the exact same way. Just quickly move back to the right as soon as you see the white flash appear. When his health is about halfway down, the real fight will begin. Okay, time for Lubella the Giant Tit Witch. The falling projectiles can be dodged solely based on the iframes of your roll. It's not even required to aim your roll in between the projectiles. However, this is different during the second encounter. When she disappears, move to the left side of the screen and as soon as the orbs start to flash, roll to the right. Again, your iframes will save you even if the orbs visually come in contact with your character. She has a third attack where explosions emerge from underneath you, so you always need to focus on the ground beneath you, so you will immediately spot the white flash if that happens, and immediately roll out of the way if you see it. However, this can only happen when she is on screen. And if you're lucky, she will start giggling, giving you several free hits. Just keep repeating the same patterns and smack her titties around until she had enough. Alright, second boss down, but as you know, we'll have a second encounter with Boob Lady later on in the game. We're going to leave Car City behind for now, and we're going down towards the encounter with Derelict Frida. But first we encounter one of the NPCs, specifically the knight that will help us against one of the bosses. Now, to be honest, I know absolutely nothing about the story in this game. As far as I understand, they were going for a similar type of environmental storytelling as From Software does. However, even after talking with the NPCs, I still hardly have any clue who any of them is supposed to be, or how and to what extent their role is even significant. All I know is that there is some sort of a curse, the queen is the source, so you need to lift the curse by defeating her. That's basically all I know. This is also the fourth Momodora, I believe, so I would guess that this is part of a larger story anyway. So in the end, you will see me talking with the NPCs, but I'm not exactly focusing on the story. Now, given that this game is non-linear, it is not required to go here first. In fact, you can also choose to go towards the fire area first, because that's where you get the mid-air evasion ability. Or you can go to Whiteleaf Park first to get the cat transformation after the second boss fight against the Tit Witch. That way you can go back to the forest area to get the warping ability. However, I basically just chose to go through the game in the most natural route, by which I mean clearing the areas that are closest by first. So my progression will be Derelict Frida, Whiteleaf Park, the fire area, the monastery, back to the forest past the night mini-boss, and then finally to Kar's castle, since that's what we need the 4 fragments for to begin with, given that they serve as a key of some sort. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the stun mechanic of your own leaf attack. As long as enemies are stunned, you can keep attacking, but strong enemies, especially some of the bosses, also require you to learn when they will or will not get stunned, or how long it will last, which is different for each boss. I mean, the previous 2 could not get stunned at all, but for most common enemies, you can get them killed as long as you can connect your first attack. As long as your attack isn't interrupted by having to respond to another enemy, of course. The most dangerous enemy in this area are those floating staff-wielding enemies. They throw their staffs like a boomerang, so that's a giant hitbox that moves in and out of the screen in a rather hard to predict trajectory. So if you can't evade them altogether, for those enemies it's important to stun them as quickly as possible. So get a first hit in, even if it's a jumping attack, and that will likely stun them long enough to finish them off. Be careful when killing these lantern ladies, as sometimes they may drop their lantern after death, and as you would expect, the slightest touch of fire is already an instant death. Okay, here I hesitated, but I got lucky. I should have immediately jumped towards the enemy to stun it before it could throw the staff, but it turned out that it went around me. The point is that since it moves off screen, it becomes hard to predict where exactly it will show up again. So it's best to prevent that from happening altogether. Alright, in the next screen is a breakable wall that provides a shortcut back to the save point. After all, a boss fight is coming up. So what you need to do is to lure the bomb throwing enemy to the right and then jump over the bomb. Son of a bitch! Okay, well, not like that, because then you have to go all the way around again. Immediately roll to avoid the bomb, and when you jump up the stairs, move left off screen to reset the lantern enemy. Otherwise she tends to immediately hit you. The second one tries to block my attack, but that doesn't actually do that much. Just keep attacking until her animation breaks. Right before the boss is a floating staff enemy, and you need to kill her, otherwise she can actually hit you during the boss fight. I'm not kidding, I have in fact died like that. Alright, first thing to be aware of is that Frida becomes a hitbox herself as soon as she starts walking forward. So I purposefully move right after each attack, otherwise you will die as soon as she starts moving. So this is one of those cases where it's best to not finish her combos, since you cannot cancel out of your third hit. When she does the laser, simply duck to avoid it. Her bite attack is not telegraphed with a white flash, so you need to react by rolling away as soon as you see her moving her head down. In other words, you need to react very quickly. When she starts charging her giant laser attack, simply hit her a few times to break that animation. This will cancel that attack altogether. Don't get greedy when she summons dogs, get yourself ready to hit it as soon as it appears. After all, dogs launch themselves forward, so you need to kill them before they have a chance to do that. And if she summons 2 dogs, focus on killing the second one as quickly as possible, because Frida will simply continue doing any of her attacks while the dogs are still alive. I was very lucky in this fight as she didn't teleport, because that's a dangerous move as she can teleport right on top of you. So be prepared to roll the very first frame she appears, if she does in fact appear where you are currently standing. Okay then, Frida drops the sparse thread, which is actually a very powerful item, but we're not allowed to use it. And we also get our first crest fragment, but that one upgrades our arrows, so it's also useless in this playthrough, other than serving as a key for the final area of course. Don't forget that enemies respawn, including the staff-throwing enemy on the edge of the boss arena. And that will be it for the first episode. Next episode we're going further down for the garden key, and then we'll be headed for Whiteleaf Park for the second encounter with Giant Boob Lady. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget the notification bell. And check out my other videos if you like. And make sure to stay tuned for the next episode.